Welcome to Dare, the show for startup leaders, innovators, and entrepreneurs who dare to shape the future. Dare is brought to you by the Oregon Entrepreneurs Network, OEN, and Darwaf, the superpower tech team that can make your vision a reality. The Dare Show is excited to welcome Mara McLoughlin to the show. She's a speech language pathologist and the founder of IRL Social Skills, empowering autistic and socially struggling teens, young adults, and older adults and families with the skills to make real world connections in real life. She's a leader in the world of autism and social skills, and I'm excited to learn more from her. Thanks for being here, Mara.
Thanks, Ned. It's great to be here.
Well, so tell me about how you got going on this. Like, what's your origin story, so to speak?
Well, I was working in the schools as a speech language pathologist, and my specialty was getting non speaking autistic students a functional way to express themselves, either using low or high tech means. And I noticed that these ones over here, right? These ones who could speak, who were perhaps doing well academically, were struggling socially. And
Mm,
that was going to be the biggest barrier to them across the board, having a rich life with friends, with a partner, with and being employed. So I started in March of 2021 during the pandemic, during the recession, because I just knew that there were a lot of people suffering. And the people who were suffering the most were those who were already in a community deficit, if you will.
mm.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'll just back up to an obvious question. Why do we need social skills? Why do we need connections with other people?
Well, humans are profoundly social, right?
Uh-huh.
And our ability to survive actually depends on our relationships
Mm,
with other people. The more people that we have that are, strong, intimate, trusting relationships, the better
mhm,
our chances for survival. So it is really, these skills help us across the board, and they're, so-called soft skills, right? Soft skills are hard skills, and they really are make or break,
mm.
especially when it comes to workforce development.
Yeah, I was just reading an article in the New York Times today about the fact that people who are super agers or people who are highly functional into their 80s and 90s are people who have ongoing social relationships for many decades.
Yep.
So if you get really isolated, that can actually affect you in terms of your mental health long term for decades, right?
It's, not only your mental health, it is your physical health. I mean,
Yeah.
loneliness is more than just a bad feeling.
Mm,
And, it impacts people on a physical level to the point of, as Dr. Vivek Murthy, former Surgeon General of the US, explained in the 82-page report that they put out in May 2023 on the loneliness epidemic,
uh-huh.
that it is equivalent to smoking 15 cigarettes a day.
Wow.
Yeah. So
Holy
cardiovascular disease, stroke, dementia, of course, anxiety, depression, suicidality. So there's a lot of ramifications to being socially impoverished, if you will.
Yeah. So tell me about what you actually do to make a difference here.
Yeah. So my team of speech language pathologists, occupational therapists, and mental health providers have a flagship offering that is 16 weeks, and
Mm,
it is a parent mediated intervention. So that means parents also participate. Most parents, they see their child struggling socially, not being invited to birthday parties, being ostracized and excluded. And it's painful.
mm,
It's painful for parents, and parents, they wanna help, right? But they don't know how. Their, child, and we serve teens and young adults and older adults. Their child, of whatever age, may be on an individual education plan or program through school, and, their teachers are saying, "Oh, they're doing great," but parents know that they're not doing great because they're lonely.
mm.
They tell their parents they're not doing great by being lonely and isolated, and, not having people come to the door and knock and say, "Hey, do you wanna come play basketball?" Or
Yeah.
yeah, and the majority of services are geared towards little kids. But we get
Really?
older, yeah, the social demands of life increase. At middle school is where the rubber hits the road, and our relationships previously to middle school were more based in play. And so
Mm,
those are the skills that have been targeted. But then we get to middle school and something changes and our relationships become more based in conversation. But if you haven't intervened on the reciprocal conversation skills,
Mm-hmm.
then there's a deficit. So that's what we do. We teach a 16-week program as well as a 12-week program for older adults due to high demand. And our summer sessions, which are 8 weeks accelerated twice a week, we teach the skills of reciprocal conversation, of finding an accepting source of friends based on your interest. This is strategic. You're not for everyone, right? Everyone's not for you. You need to find your people, and they're harder to find because there's fewer of them, right? And when you find them, you still have to use the skills to, exchange contact information. How do you do that? To grow the relationship,
Mm-hmm.
to sustain the relationship when you get into an argument or a disagreement. Those are skills. How to handle bullying. There's like, these are all skills, and even adults encounter bullying.
Mm-hmm.
Even if that's not, like verbal or physical abuse, but, shunning, exclusion, ostracization, discrimination.
So I'm curious, mostly because I'm ignorant. When
Mhm.
you are working with people, though, are you actually like walking through a typical social interaction and helping them to understand what the cues are? Because I know some people with autism, not all people, but have difficulty with catching social cues that are more kind of neurotypical social cues, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. We teach that, you have to attend. You really have to attend in every interaction that you're having of the impact of your communication on your communication partner. Are they looking at
Mm,
me? If they're giving me the positive signs, or they're looking at me, they're nodding, they're smiling, they're looking at my
yeah.
face, right? People love faces. The negative signs are they're rolling their eyes, they're not looking at me, they're making a confused face, right? And this means I need to adjust, right? Are they facing me? Yeah, or are they
Hmm.
giving me the cold shoulder?
Hmm.
Have they opened the circle to, allow me to enter when I try to join a group conversation? Or are they, just like, do they totally ignore me? Do they initially accept me and then reject me? Or have they fully accepted me and I just have to go? What are the social graces to like make people feel like, oh, friendly towards me, not bothered by me?
Right.
Yeah, and it's not teaching masking, it's not putting on your best normal. It is actually, teaching the skills that socially successful people use. These are what are known as ecologically valid skills, the skills that socially successful people
Hmm.
use in real life. So, I'll give you an example, beyond that we need to like look, are they talking to me? Are they looking at me? Are they facing me? We need to like use a strategy. And the strategy that we teach is ask a question, make a comment, give a compliment, ask a follow-up question, answer your own question, right? So that you're not being a
Hmm.
conversation hog, you're not dominating the conversation, info dumping, if you will. You're not being an interviewer, right? Asking question after
Hmm.
question like the Spanish Inquisition. You have to
Right.
something about yourself as well. And these are these skills. I mean, everybody has to use them. You're at a work event, right? There's a networking event. You have to get in the mix. What are you going to do? You're going to hold up the wall, or you're going to get in the mix. How are you going to do it? Are you going to do it effectively, or are you going to do it ineffectively? Being effective is doing what works. And these skills work. Part of what impacts the, autistic specifically neurotype or brain style is the lack of
Hmm.
initiation, which is really, compounded by the anxiety that comes from, you never know
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
people are gonna do or say, they're confusing. And then, like, with the ADHD neurotype, there might be more of the impulsivity, the, like, interrupting, barging in, and not paying attention to the cues. When you have the mixed neurotype, autism, ADHD, you're gonna get a combination of that. And just teaching and practicing and modeling with training of environments, like the family, for
Mhm.
example, they really gain these skills. Like,
Fantastic.
it's pretty awesome.
So you mentioned a little while ago another term that I've
Uh-huh.
heard called masking.
Yep.
And I know a little bit about the autistic community. I had a best-selling novel set in that community some years ago that I
Wow.
wrote, and I got to
Awesome.
know the community really well. But there is really, in the past, there was this idea that autistic people should mask who they really are in order to fit in. And I see you shaking your head, and I agree with your head shake. But maybe for those who are uninformed, you could explain what masking is, why people endorsed it, and why people don't think that it's a good thing now, just to be really clear about it.
Yes. So the predominant treatment for autism has historically been something called applied behavior analysis, or ABA. ABA is a
Mhm,
compliance based behavioral intervention with the explicitly stated goal to make someone indistinguishable from their typically developing peers. Because
mm,
that was the notion that, oh, if we can teach them just how to like put on their best normal, then they'll be better
mhm,
off. And that contributes to even more anxiety, even more mental health issues because fitting in is not belonging, you know? Fitting in,
mm,
I'm like constricted, right? My body is like, "Oh, I'm gonna try to like get in here, but I don't really belong there." I want to know how it feels in my body to belong with a
mhm,
group of people, right? Now, you can't there are times when masking is critical to survival, you know?
mhm,
If you are, let's say, because ABA is based in gay conversion therapy. So if
mm,
you are typically flamboyantly gay, right? But then you're somewhere where the culture is more conservative, you're going to want to lower that flag a little bit, for safety's sake. And same with autistic people. Like, for example, unmasking at work. You know what? That might be real risky, especially if you disclose that you're autistic, given, the direction that the gestalt is heading in terms of,
unfortunately, yeah, I think that's true. Yeah.
yeah. But you can use other skills, like you can use your self advocacy skills. This is what I need to do my job most effectively. You
Mhm.
don't have to disclose a disability because people do discriminate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's no obligation for you to disclose who you are, but you also don't have to conceal who you are when it feels safe.
Yeah, that's true. And it just is context dependent. Like all
Mhm.
communication is context dependent. And that's what we teach. We teach people that you can deploy these skills. Okay. Oh, I'm in this setting. I'm going to use these skills. I'm in this setting. I'm going to use these skills. I'm over here. I'm going to use a different set of skills. Right. But if you don't have a broad
Yeah,
repertoire of skills, you can't use the skills.
right.
So you're like a one trick pony.
So it's giving people options, really.
Yeah, absolutely. For connection. For
Mhm.
social success. I mean, again, friendship is a choice. Relationships are choices, and both people have to choose.
Yeah. So you came to our attention through
Uh-huh.
the startup community.
Mhm.
And I'm curious if you think of your work as being part of a startup company or an entrepreneurial venture. Tell me more about that.
Yes, well, I mean, it is a business. IRL Social Skills is a LLC, S corp. I'm licensed in both Oregon and California, business
Uh-huh.
license as well as my professional license, as well as licensed nationally as a speech language pathologist. It's a truly a David and Goliath story because applied behavior analysis is the
Mhm.
predominant therapy with the insurance mandate. It is covered no matter what. And there's no scope of
Really?
practice. Yeah, it's covered no matter what. There's no scope of practice for applied behavior analysis.
Fascinating.
Everything's a behavior, right? So everything can be intervened upon. But autism isn't a behavior. It's a neurotype that has been around for 10,000 years that has distinct neurological advantages as well as distinct challenges. Mostly because, there's just
Yeah.
fewer. It's a smaller population. And ABA companies, because there's no scope of practice, because they are largely bought up by private equity and there's no insurance,
Mhm.
there's an insurance mandate. So it's always covered no matter what. They are really winning the game. And I just wanted to put forth that, you know what? You can use a biopsychosocial approach, a social
Mhm.
sensational approach, not a behavioral approach, and get better outcomes. And the research backs this up. So that's why I launched. And there has been, some really wonderful successes. We were named as one of America's top small businesses 2 years in a row by the Small Business Administration. Got to go
Oh,
to
yeah.
Yeah. And
And you were saying you were named and then you got to go where did you get to go?
oh, got to go to Washington, DC to
Wow.
yeah, and so that was really fun to meet a bunch of other founders, because
Mhm.
it can be speaking of loneliness, it can be kinda lonely as a founder, right?
Yeah,
To unless you, like, find your
absolutely.
community, and thankfully in Portland, there are several venues and forums in which to
Mhm.
cultivate that community, and it's really good for founders to be able to get in the mix like that.
So are you growing your team or what are you doing next to, continue to grow your business and grow your team?
Yeah, I am doing a B2B pivot. So,
Okay.
yeah, given that ABA is winning the game, if you can't beat them, join them. And ABA places are actually sending people to us because
Mhm.
ABA's, bag of tricks kind of runs out at that middle school level when they are needing to teach social skills. And, it's like, oh, anybody can teach social skills, right? Okay. It's actually really hard to do. How do you teach a fish to swim? Like, what's the problem? You just go up and introduce yourself. Like, that's not how it goes. That's not how
Yeah,
we do it. That would be really weird, actually. If I just saw you somewhere apropos of nothing and was like, hey, I'm Mara. Nice to meet you. Like, you would be like, oh, okay.
yeah.
It would take you aback a bit.
Mhm.
So I'm doing a B2B pivot there. I just was in a call yesterday with somebody from the Department of Human Services here in Oregon. And they were saying how, the Department of Vocational Rehabilitation, and they were saying the problem is we send people out, we do job training, we send them out, and they get fired and they come back to us. And that's a huge waste of resources. How
Right, right.
about you front load the social skills and you train the environment? And the mismatch, right, between an autistic and non-autistic neurotype.
Mhm.
Yeah, and what you
So
need to
that
do.
everybody is happy with the results rather than both sides being frustrated and disappointed.
Exactly. I mean, because there's, these faux pas that are made that have really serious consequences.
Mhm.
For example, someone goes to work and, okay, I'm supposed to give a compliment. And they know that, like the female form is very lovely. So they'll give a compliment on someone's breasts. And, what does that person do? Do they say, thank you? You don't give compliments on people's appearance at work. That's the rule. No, they go to HR and that
Mhm.
person gets summarily fired because they didn't understand the rules and they were trying. It's not
Yeah.
for lack of trying, right? It's the hidden curriculum, if you will, that like everybody else seems to got the memo but me.
Yeah, it is tricky. We have a lot of unspoken rules, you know? We really do. Yeah.
Yeah, we do. And that whole like, who wants to tell them, how about we like give everyone the skills to
Yeah.
tell them, directly, explicitly, kindly,
Yeah.
so they learn.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, so I've worked in tech for a number of years. And
Hmm.
as you know, there are a number of people in tech who are on the autistic spectrum
Yep.
or have other not neurotypical approaches to life. And
Hmm.
I'm curious for those listeners who are in the technology world and have been successful there, but find themselves wanting some help in other areas of their lives. Do you have any thoughts about technology and autism? And it's a big package. Could you unpack it with me a bit?
Yeah, I have a lot of thoughts about technology and autism. So there's, speaking of tech, I do have a tech partner and we are using their tech, kind of piloting it with one of my adult programs. It's a
Mhm,
simple psychosocial check-in. We know that autism isn't there's a lot of propaganda out there about it, and there's also it's a complex developmental disability, and there's
mhm.
attendant, physical and mental health issues with it, and they need support across the lifespan, right? Something that does need to be guarded against is the use of AI chatbots as
Mm,
friends
mm.
or therapists. That I think is very, very risky, especially for people who are lonely and lacking friends. You can make a person's mental health worse.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So tell me more about the problems. Like double click on that. What problems do you see? It can make things worse. but it can also lead to false assumptions about what it is to have a friend or what it is to interact with somebody, right?
Mhm, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, that the false assumptions, well, I mean, is the AI chatbot gonna disagree with you?
Mhm.
I mean, do you get to work that out and maybe become closer as a
Or
result?
tell you you did something wrong and be able to work with you on how to make it right, right?
Yeah, exactly, and be able to, grasp really, like, the nuances, the micro expressions,
Mhm.
to be able to provide, like, direct, explicit coaching in a group format. See, that's another thing too, is that what is broken in community is healed in community,
Mm,
you know? Oregon is 51st in the country when it comes to adolescent mental health.
mm.
You throw Puerto Rico in there, and that's where we get 51.
Wow.
Additionally, according to census data, Oregonians are the most lonely state.
Really?
Yeah.
Hmm.
So Oregonians report feeling more lonely than anyone in any other state. And
Really sad. I don't like that stat.
I know it is really sad. And, to be able to provide a live intervention via Zoom, which can be deployed, across the state, and in fact, which we deploy across the country because there are so few services for teens and adults. People, seek us out across,
Yeah.
from Hawaii to New York. And doing it in a group format is it's really healing. This is like I said, it's hard for you, it's hard for me too. There's the
Yeah.
empathy of the shared experience, right? And that goes for everything, like people with cancer,
Mhm.
traumatic brain injury, stroke. Like it is a technology that can be deployed for many different maladies. And in fact, that was what Dr. Vivek Murthy said was the dream of healthcare, to have an interdisciplinary group intervention. So we're doing it.
Wow, that's inspiring. So,
Mhm.
Mara, it's been such a pleasure to talk with you. And you can find out more about what her organization offers and how to either get more help with social skills and be empowered in your social environment at IRLsocialskills.com. As Mara said, she's nationwide, but she's based here in Portland, Oregon. So, thank you for being with us.
Thank you, Ned.
Thanks to our guests today for their insights into the entrepreneurial ecosystem. We wish you all the best in your startup journey. The Dare Show is brought to you by the Oregon Entrepreneurs Network and by Darwaf, the superpower tech team that can make your vision a reality. Visit us at oen.org or at darwaf.io. Thanks again for listening. Till next time.